Hi everyone. I am doing a little series of videos on coloring, and I am using the Simply Zinnia stamp set because it's just beautiful for coloring. And I already filmed the one for watercolor pencils, Stampin' Up watercolor pencils, and now I'm going to use Stampin' Up markers. I'm going to do just the regular Stampin' Write markers, and then I have another video where I'll do the Stampin' Blends, and then the final one will be on watercolor. So I just thought it would be fun to show different ways to color things with Stampin' Up products. And so markers are a nice option because they come in little packs of so many colors. Let's see if I have a pack. I have this pack right here, for example, and this one is the new core colors. They did a color refresh last catalog, and so they added some new colors to our lineup. So this was kind of a nice way for them to give us colors to add into what we already own. So you can get each color family, and if you're unfamiliar, Stampin' Up! Has 4 color families and then something called in colors. So you've got subtles, which are kind of more pale pastels. So this is a new subtle color here, Bubble Bath, and this is a new subtle color, Fresh Freesia. And then there's brights, which are things like Melon Mambo and Daffodil Delight, some really bright and bold colors, and Berry Burst is a new bright, as is Azure Afternoon. And then there's Regals, which are your jewel tone colors, real deep colors, and a new one there is this pretty peacock, which is nice, but it's got some really good colors in that collection. So each collection has a wide range of colors. Each collection has a red and a reddish, so sometimes it's more purple, but an orange like Calypso Coral, the subtles, or it has a yellow in each collection. There's a green and a blue in each collection, actually. So it's kind of nice. You've got that. Even the neutrals would include things like, you know, your beige type colors. So you've got crumb cake, and this is a new neutral, pecan pie, early espresso. But then there's also kind of that pecan pie is what I'm considering the yellow of the group, because it's got a yellow kind of undertone. And then you've got blues like Night of Navy, and then Misty Moonlight is neutral, and Mossy Meadow, things like that. So you've got some nice ranges. And then the in colors are kind of different every year. Every year there's a new set of 5, and they last 2 years. And so then every year there's a new set of 5, but there's always 10 available that year. So it's kind of confusing, but the markers are nice because you get them in that pack, and you've got all those colors in that family. So kind of, if you only want to get a couple packs, you can say, what are you drawn to? Are you drawn to your more subtle colors or your brights? I'm a jewel tone person. I really love those jewel tones because I like the fall Cajun craze, and I love Pretty Peacock and Old Olive, all those kind of colors. So, you know, you kind of pick a color that it's good for you, and you know, you can use these flowers can be colored in the various families, maybe not the neutrals, but unless you've got some dried flowers kind of on the dead side, forget that I said that. All right, anyway, we're going to use colors though based on some paper that just came out, and it's the Simply Zinnia paper, and it's just beautiful. I really love it. Bold and bright colors. So we're going to go with bold and bright colors. But I am going to bring in some of the subtles because I looked at what the paper says that this is, and this is Lemon Lolly. And so that's a nice little soft color. Also this lighter color here. And so I'm going to use kind of a range of colors. All right, so I've already stamped these because you know how to stamp, and I'm just mostly want to focus on coloring, and you know, I want to get into it with the colors. So let's get going. All right, so I'm going to start with the lightest one that I'm going to do, and that's this Bubble Bath. Now with our markers, as opposed to other things, you kind of just get one tone, I should say one kind of value of color, but sometimes you can get more than that. So I'm going to show you, just I like to kind of look at my colors, and so that's Bubble Bath. Sometimes, every once in a while, the smaller side will be a slightly different shade. I don't know why that is, because I think it's inside this barrel as one continuous marker. But sometimes I have noticed that if I go like this on one side, but then I come to the other side, it's a little lighter. So sometimes you can get a paler color value with the other side. So like, for example, this one is Melon Mambo. Those are pretty true to color, actually, pretty close. But this purple one, Gorgeous Grape, was vastly different. So anyway, thought I would share. I thought I would share that with you. And sometimes you can also get another value by going over a color. So for example, I'm not sure it's going to show up so much with the bubble bath, but one thing about Stampin' Write markers, if you are trying to not get that line in between your colors, I'm going to choose a richer color to show what I'm talking about. So what's this one? Granny Apple Green. If you don't want to have a line, see how you can kind of see where I went, because when I overlapped there's a darker shade there. You have to try to be careful to not overlap if you don't want that line. Sometimes it's kind of hard, and it does kind of fade out after a while. But sometimes you might want a darker color. So let's say you have a leaf, you've kind of made a leaf shape, and maybe you want to have a darker vein, for example. I'm just doing something real silly here, but you can just kind of add another layer, and sometimes it'll kind of diffuse out a little bit, but sometimes you can add another layer on top and get a deeper color. So even though these are not Stampin' Blends, which are meant for all those different highs and lows of color, you can still get that a little bit. And so I like to show that because the Stampin' Blends can be a little bit pricier for some, and so I don't want you to think that you can't get different tones, darks and lights. So here's Melon Mambo again, and I can go over it, and that second layer is going to be darker. And I'm going to leave it out. I'm going to see how much it diffuses out. This one's starting to, but you can go over it again and again and see what it takes. Okay, so anyway, I like to kind of play around and see what I've got, do that little test to see if the other side, the small side, is lighter, and you know, kind of play with your markers. So I'm going to start on my actual stamped images. So this is Bubble Bath, and I'm going to go with the brush tip end. So you saw there was a brush tip end and then a bullet end, and I'm just going to go ahead and color these flowers. Now I'm not going to worry so much about coloring individual petals. Sometimes that's important if you're doing some techniques, but I'm just kind of going down, and if I overlap, that's okay. In this video, when I'm doing something pretty repetitious, I will fast forward because I want you to not have to watch me do something, the same thing over and over, and then be bored. So I will fast forward when I can, and hopefully that's something that's okay with you. Okay, so that's my first layer, and then I'm going to go in with that Melon Mambo, which is very dark. Next to it, it's going to look really dark, but we're going to add some highlights onto our bubble bath, so that'll help it a little bit. And I'm kind of going off of, see how the paper, they've got a light petal and then another layer. Now this particular stamp is the flowers on an angle, so you're not seeing the darker all the way around. Okay, so I've got my next layer on there. So what I can do is I can attempt to get a darker value by just layering it again. I didn't do the bubble bath. So you can add a darker color to the center of your petals. Now I think this is probably going to mostly diffuse out, but we'll see. Alright, I'm going to let it sit for a minute and just see how much really stays. And then while I do that, while I'm waiting for that, I'm going to do the inside of this little flower. So I'm going to use Lemon Lolly. And these little, cute little, what are these? Stamens? I don't know, my flowers. I really should look these things up before I do a video. If I know I'm going to say it, because I said the same thing in the colored pencil one. Maybe I'll get my act together by the time I do the watercolor one. Alright, so I've got those. And then I'm going to do, the centers are orange, pumpkin pie. I'm going to do that. Alright, so I don't think that that's dark enough. It gets too diffused in, so I'm going to go back in. I really want to be bold like the paper here, so I'm going to go with some actually melon mambo, and they even used some grape on top. And I'm not really copying this flower, obviously, because I used the lighter bubble bath, but I'm going to do a few different flowers, and I thought I would start with this one. So I'm coming in and I'm really giving this some punch of color to the center here. And I'm just kind of going to go back over it with the bubble bath, just the center. Even though these are not Stampin' Blends, they're not really blending markers, they're a water-based marker, and you can sometimes get a little bit of softening and blending if you go over it again. Just kind of pushing that melon mambo top layer around a little bit. So there I've got a really bold, pretty zinnia. There. Right, let's do another color. So now I want to go with, let's start with melon mambo, just for fun. Try and do something like this one. So here we go. This one's starting out really dark. I have noticed this is a newer melon mambo marker, and I have noticed that my melon mambo marker is really actually pretty rich. I keep looking at it to see if it's maybe berry burst, but it's not. That would have been a good color choice too. Okay, so that's my first layer of petals, and then I'm going to go with Gorgeous Grape. Okay, I've got it done, but now I'm going to add those deep little marks, these little additional color in the little veiny areas. Now I used that other side, which remember I said was lighter, only on this grape one so far, but I'm going to go in again with the brush tip side and get even darker here and there. Alright, so I've got a very dark, bold flower. Let's do one more. I think I want to try some fresh freesia. Okay, so I've got my colors in. I'm going to go in with the Highland Heather on top of... Now this one's interesting. Remember how the Gorgeous Grape, the darker was the brush tip and the lighter was the bullet end. So here I'm kind of finding the opposite. This one is the bullet end and this one is the brush tip. They're pretty close, but the bullet tip is a little bit darker. It's always nice to kind of have a scrap piece of paper nearby before you start for the first time. Okay, so then I added my layer of Highland Heather. I'm going to go back over it with the fresh freesia. Like I said, it's not going to blend a lot, but I can get the color to move a little bit. Alright, I think that guy's pretty. Let's see if I can get it closer for you. Okay, so now let's do our leaves. So I'm going to kind of use the same principle. I'm going to go with a lighter color. This is Lemon Lime Twist. And then I'm going to bring in, I'm kind of mimicking these again. The stamp is a little different, doesn't have the veins the same, but I could still bring in a little bit of the garden green and just kind of go along the vein a little bit, just to add the bold color. Okay, just for fun there. And then I want to show you what I did with it. But before I move on, I could do another leaf. Before I move on, I did mention to you that our markers are water-based markers. So I want to show you what that means for you. So you can take your stamp, and if you grab a waterproof ink, such as StazOn, although this has got, let me clean this off first. I need to re-ink my pad. So watercolor paper is somewhat textured, unless you get a hot press. And then let me see if I have, there we go. It's textured, so you really want to make sure you've inked up your stamp really well to get a clear image. I like to ink it up in the center and then tilt it so that it kind of diffuses to the edges. And that way if you tip it, you're not going to get lines of ink. It kind of moves about until it disappears. Right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead with this. Now I'm going to show you just a way that you can use your markers on watercolor paper. And sometimes people think it's really nice to use markers as opposed to trying to paint out of your refillable ink, because you have a little control first with your marker. So you can go ahead and do something like color your petals, and you don't even have to color them all the way. You can give them kind of, do the edges. And then get your brush. And I'm going to use my Stampin' Up brush. If you haven't seen them, they come in a pack. Let's see, which one is my small one? They come in a 3-pack, and there's a small, a medium, and then a flat. And this is the small. So once you've got that ink on there, you're going to take, oh, there's water in here. And you just kind of squeeze the barrel until water comes down on your brush. Now I should have had that already ready because this is going to dry on here, and then you will see those lines, but you can get working. If you get working quickly, you can smear out this ink. And I probably should have done half the flower, since I'm talking. If I was working and not talking and not trying to show you things. Sometimes you have to squeeze the barrel again to get that water going. I think this one's too small for this. I'm going to go to my medium. So time was of the essence there because I was talking and I wasn't moving quick enough, so I forgot to do in here. So I'm going to come back and get that. And then, depending upon what look you're going for, I was trying to have the petals just kind of softly edged, but then I was taking too long. So if you do just part of the flower, and I'll talk about more of this in the watercolor video, but I just didn't want the marker video to go by without telling you that you can actually use them for watercolor looking effects because they are water-based markers. And when it dries, you can go back in and add some more. And do it as many times as you want. Anyway, it's a fun way to play with your markers. I think so anyway. All right, so I'm going to leave that like that, and oh, whoops. Okay, so now we have a watercolor looking flower, which I think is really pretty. I'm going to add a little lightness there by adding some water, just kind of blend out some of the areas that are showing white. Okay, so now once you have all these little colored pieces, you can use them on a card, and I will show you what I did with them. And here we go. This is my marker version, and it's just a little quick card that you can use with any of the varieties, but here I want to show you, so I have the colored pencil version, which is on the other video, but it looks the same, just slightly different look to the coloring. And then here, this is just paper, cardstock, using the dies. So if you would like to take a look at the colored pencil version or the watercolor version or the Stampin' Blends version, there are videos for those as well. And I hope that if you want to see more, click the little bell, the little notification bell, and then that way you'll be notified when I upload. I haven't even filmed yet the blends or the watercolor one, so you can be notified when those are up and going. So I hope you enjoyed this marker video. I hope you got some tips out of it. They're really fun to use, and I think you can really get some nice highlights, some depth of color, and they're simple, and it's nice that you get a little pack, and you can get all the color families or just the ones you want, and then it's fun to watercolor with them. And see, this is a little about a half hour later, and you still have the different, you still see the two different tones there, so you can use that technique of going over it one more time to create like a shadow, a line on a cup, you know, some kind of darker edge underneath, stuff like that. So it's really nice to know that. And that's it. Thank you for watching my marker version. Where did my card go? Here it is. Oh, I should say, I did this earlier, and this one is Flirty Flamingo. So I didn't do that again. It wasn't my favorite combo, so I went with these three this time. But they're all pretty, and I hope that you enjoy it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Bye!